Hey everybody, how are you? Greetings, one and all. Happy holidays and season's greetings to you. I tell you, we have made it just about to the end of 2023. Can you believe that? I mean, we are right at the threshold of a new year, according to this Gregorian calendar that we observe. Nevertheless, we have a lot to be thankful for. And I tell you what, I, for one, am very thankful. Another thing I'm thankful for is to have you back with me once again, as I am so glad to be back with you once again. And I thank you for that. And I certainly would like to welcome you to another episode of TJ's Topics. And I tell you, we've been together all this year, wrapping up year number 1 of doing this show, this little thing that I do. And, it's fun, and it's something that I really enjoy. And I tell you, it's really brought great pleasure to me. It really has. And it's something that I do not take for granted. And, at this point in life, I don't think any of us should take anything for granted, because think of all the people who have left us this year. I mean, from stars to just common everyday people, there have been a lot of folks who have crossed over throughout this year. And yet we're here. And so I feel like we have a lot to be grateful for, and we ought not take it for granted, because it wasn't guaranteed to us. And so that's why we should be ultimately grateful just to be here at this moment. And that I am. And, I want to come on here today because, we're getting ready to observe Christmas. This is the time of the year where, they say 'tis the season for giving. But I tell you what, there are a lot of things that I have learned about this holiday over the last few years, and especially since I've been an adult. Christmas really doesn't have the same significance to me that it had when I was a child growing up. It just doesn't have that same feeling like it did when I was a kid. And I'm sure there are many of you out there who feel the same way. Because think about when you were a child. I mean, our parents used to tell us we got to hurry up and go to bed. They didn't want us to be up when Santa would show up, because if Santa Claus showed up at our house and we were still awake, then not only would he not leave us any gifts, but in some cases he would do harm to us. Like, for example, I was told that if Santa Claus came and caught me still awake, then he would throw ashes in my eyes. Or perhaps he might put a lump of coal in my stocking, which I never had a stocking when I was little. But, for the children who did, he would put a lump of coal in it. And I look back and I think about all those crazy tales that we were told. And now it just, it just makes me wonder, why in the world? But, that's really what I want to talk about today as we get ready to go through this Christmas holiday. Because the truth of the matter is, Christmas is not what we have been made to believe it is. It's not all that it's cracked up to be. It's not all that it has been played up to be. And it's been played up to be a lot of things over the course of history. But I have a little information that I would like to share with you today. And, I've been doing a lot of research, and And it's good to be able to research things for yourself. No longer do we have to go along with the same old stuff that we were told ever since early childhood. We now have the ability to learn and discover things for ourselves. And that too is something else that we should not take for granted. So with that being said, I would like to talk to you today about the paganism of Christmas. Because believe it or not, Christmas is most definitely a pagan holiday. Nothing about Christmas is like pure and righteous, and people make it out to be that way, especially church folk, Christians, make Christmas out to be just, you know, the end all and be all of the calendar, but that's not the case. So again, the paganism of Christmas. Humans as a species love to take inspiration from different cultures, customs, and traditions. And believe it or not, Christmas is no different. If you thought those cozy traditions you knew and loved were about celebrating Christmas, think again. Things like kissing under the mistletoe, y'all have seen those mistletoes hanging over the doorways in people's houses and everywhere else. Singing carols and wreaths, and even gift giving were all aspects of pagan holidays that were adapted into Christmas celebrations in the early years. There are a lot of things that we celebrate, and we don't even know why we celebrate them. We don't know their true origin. We have no idea how these things came into being. All we know is they were taught to us as kids, and we thought that because all the adults celebrated them, that then we had to celebrate them too. And it carried over into our adulthood. And here we are today, still doing stuff, and we don't even have a clue as to why we're doing it. Decorating trees, feasting with loved ones, hanging up socks by the fireplace, those are stockings, and drinking yourself silly. And we know folks that do that all through these holidays are no different. They are all a part of pagan history and sacred holidays. In fact, most of the cultural aspects we associate with Christmas are steeped in pagan roots. Some pagan traditions that have become associated with Christmas are gift giving, the image of Santa Claus, Christmas stockings, Christmas caroling, decking the halls with boughs of holly, and decorating Christmas trees. All of that we think is, we think it's something holy. We think that it's pertaining to God. It's godly, and that it's just the right thing to do. But is it? Is all of this that we've done over the course of our lives the right thing to do? Should we even, be observing Christmas? What are we really observing? Because I'm going to tell you this, it seems as if this time of year brings out the worst in most people. Christmas oftentimes brings out the worst in many adults. It affords adults the opportunity to behave as little kids. And I tell you, I see a lot of grown folks around here, they get plumb stupid during the holidays. I mean, things that they would not normally do throughout the rest of the year, they find themselves doing at Christmas time. And why that is, I don't know. They get drunk and, they they want to put on all these old ugly sweaters and different things, and they party and they do all sorts of stuff. And yet we call this the most wonderful time of the year. How in the hell is this the most wonderful time of the year when you got people out here spending their entire paycheck trying to buy gifts in an effort to impress people whom not only they don't care anything about, but who also don't care anything about them? And then think about this now. We got to live past December 25th because it's only one day. Christmas will be over at midnight on Christmas night. And then the next day, it'll just be another day. And folks done went and spent all this money buying this and buying that, trying to please this person, trying to please that person. And people are not happy. People are not satisfied. They're looking to take back the merchandise. They're taking it back to the stores so they can get their money back or exchange it for something else. Does that sound like the most wonderful time of the year to you? Mm-mm. And I think it's a good song too. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It is. It's a good song. But I don't necessarily think it's true. Now, who were these pagans? Where all this stuff came from? They came from most of those European countries. The Romans, they're in Rome, which is in Italy, Scandinavia, and all over there in Europe. And once they adopted the religion of Christianity, then that's when they started making readjustments to their lifestyles. And one of those things that they had to readjust were their observations of different holidays, different occasions, what they observed. And Christmas never was meant to be a holy holiday, or what actually, holiday is, if you separate it, you have the word holy and day. Holy day. You combine it, then it makes holiday. But I just don't see anything holy about an occasion or a day that requires people to go out and spend all their money on things that they normally wouldn't spend their money on for a bunch of people whom they have very little concern for throughout the rest of the year. And those people could care less about them. I mean, come on now, that's just stupid. Now, and we know that Christmas is celebrated during the wintertime. And this is the time of the year when we observe the winter solstice. Now, Christmas is inspired by traditions from the Romans, the Celtics, Norse, the Druids, and more. All pagan, because these were pagan people and they practiced paganism. It was like their religion, in other words. At the time, all these different groups shared one big celebration that just happened to fall around Christmas time, the winter solstice. People living in the northern hemisphere celebrate winter solstice, or the shortest day in the year, smack bang in the middle of December. And this is why Christmas just so happened to fall around the same time as many existing pagan holidays. All this was a setup. I guess you could call it a conspiracy of sorts. They had to figure out how they could go about passing this celebration off on the masses. Speaking of masses, the word Christmas, if you separate it, you have Christ and Mass. Christ, Mass. And the Roman Catholic Church, who is the main ones who orchestrated all of this, they adopted the festival of Christmas into their religion. They were behind a lot of this stuff. They observe Mass, of course. That's what they've always done and practiced over the years. Well, at this time of the year, it's been said that we observe the birth of Christ. But truth be told, there is no way that Jesus could have been born in the month of December, especially when you consider what the book of Luke says, where the shepherds were out in the fields keeping watch over their flock by night. Now, tell me this. Why would any shepherd, I don't care how warm he may be dressed, with his long johns and 3 and 4 layers on and whatnot, what would he be doing standing out in the field late at night, watching his sheep, cold as it is? And if you had a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes, certainly you wouldn't want him laying in a cold manger in a cold barn. You'd be trying to get that baby to a warm building somewhere. See, there are a lot of things when it comes to biblical teaching and doctrine and stuff that just doesn't make any sense. And it just doesn't add up. And I try to talk to people about this. I talk to a lot of Christians and stuff, and I try to help them to understand, because once upon a time I didn't understand. I didn't know these things. But thankfully, I have come into this knowledge, and I don't take it for granted. But when you go to try to help somebody else, because they're so deeply embedded in what Big Mama and all of them taught them from early childhood growing up, anytime they're presented with some new information, they feel as if that's of the devil. But that's not true. People need to know what time it is and have an accurate understanding of things and why they're doing it. And then it would make them question a lot of stuff too, if they did. Now, let's talk about gift giving for a moment. Of course, we celebrate the winter solstice in December, when the seasons change and winter comes and temperatures start going down. But there's a reason why we give gifts. First of all, the Romans would spend a week of Saturnalia. There was this Roman god named Saturn, which happens to be the name of one of the planets. And they would spend a week during the month of December eating and drinking and giving gifts and being joyful. And back in that time, they exchanged small gifts as a means of bringing about good luck for the upcoming year. That was the reason why they exchanged gifts. But today, we exchange the gifts, and it has become a multi-million-dollar industry, gift giving. Matter of fact, most of these holidays that we observe in this country are multi-billion-dollar industry, a holiday, whatever you want to call it. Billions of dollars for one day. Think of how much good could be done with all that money besides fattening up these CEOs' pockets and bank accounts. It's ridiculous. Then the image of Santa Claus, well, that came along in the early 1930s. Coca-Cola adopted him. And we've been had that same image ever since. But the character of Santa Claus actually came from somewhere in history and from a person who lived. Father Christmas, otherwise known as Saint Nicholas, was a patron saint of children, the poor, and prostitutes. Living around the 4th century AD, Saint Nicholas was a generous bishop who was known for giving gifts to the poor, sporting a big beard and long cloak, much like the Santa that we know and love. But before Saint Nicholas, even before him, there was another bearded old man named Odin, Odin. This deity was worshipped by early Germanic pagan tribes, traditionally portrayed as an old man with a long white beard with an 8-legged horse called Sleipnir, whom he would ride through the skies just like Santa does his reindeer. During the winter, kids would fill their booties with carrots and straw and leave them by the chimney for Sleipnir to feed on. Odin would fly by and reward the children with little presents in their booties. Much like we do Christmas stockings today. I tell you, it's crazy, the things that have been passed down from generation to generation. And we don't even know the real meaning behind it. And we think it's doing us good, but it's really not. Man, kissing under the mistletoe. Where did that come from? Well, the tradition goes all the way back to the pagans. Everyone from the Romans and Celts to the Druids and the Norse had a thing about mistletoe. It was considered to be a highly sacred plant involved in several pagan rituals. In the Roman world, mistletoe honored the god Saturn. To keep him happy, they would perform fertility rituals underneath sprigs of mistletoe. Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. So to me, it sounds like they were having sex underneath the mistletoe, or at the very least performing sexual acts, and that can be in a myriad of things, all in an effort to please this God. Doesn't that sound familiar? It sounds like a lot of things that we were taught in church and in Christianity, that we had to do this and do that in order to please God. Otherwise, we wouldn't find favor with him, and he certainly wouldn't find favor with us. Oh my goodness. And then there was holly, of course. You see that green plant hanging all down the hallways in different places. They make wreaths out of it. All that goes hand in hand. I'm telling you. I just wonder about a lot of stuff. I really do. And I just can't help it. Man, how in the world did we end up where we are? And we didn't know. We couldn't help it. But it is what it is. Now, of course, there's Nimrod. Now, I'm pretty sure that many of you have heard the story of Nimrod, which can also be found in the Old Testament in Genesis chapter 10, verses 8 through 12, and chapter 11, verses 1 through 9. You can read about Nimrod in those passages. Well, I'm going to tell you this. One time I heard a story concerning Nimrod and Christmas. And I was told that, you know, with regards to the ornaments that we hang on our Christmas trees, well, they're round like little balls. Well, I was told that those ornaments are actually symbolic of Nimrod's testicles. They're his family jewels, in other words. And that's what I was told. And I was also told once that when it comes to the steeples that you see on top of church buildings, that they are actually symbolic of a man's penis. See, during the early days of Christianity, the Romans and all those who were involved in the compilation of the scriptures and the Roman Catholic Church and all those men who set this system up, because that's exactly what Christianity is. It's a system. They don't tell you that, but it really is. And the church is not going to teach you that either. But it's a system. But when all this was set up hundreds of years ago, these men were basically sex crazed maniacs. They were horny as all get out. And they made a lot of decisions, all centered around sex and, being chauvinist. That's what they practiced. They were male chauvinists. And women were treated as second-class citizens. The only purpose for women, according to these men, was to bring about pleasure for their men. And they were supposed to be a source of pleasure for their husbands and bear his children. Be keepers of the home, like the Apostle Paul said, and mind their own business. Because remember, Paul said that women are to keep silent in the church. And if they want to know anything that's going on, let them go home and ask their husbands. Well, even at Christmas time, you still have a bunch of men out here who feel that it's inappropriate for women to have a say in anything. According to these so-called men of God, women don't have any business running their mouth about anything when it comes to authority or anything pertaining to it. They supposed to stay in their lane, and that's why oftentimes you hear folks say that they thank God that they were able to grow up during a time when everyone knew their place. Well, I tell you, it's so unfortunate that people have that type of mentality, but they do. Now, in the late 330s AD, in the late 330s, Pope Julius I declared December 25th as the day that Christ was born in Bethlehem. Now, that's what he said, but he didn't know. Because like I said, there's no way that Christ could have been born in the month of December. And they talking about shepherds out in the fields keeping a watch over their flock by night, and it's wintertime and it's cold outside. That's stupid as all outdoors. Well, I tell you what, looking back now over some of the things that I've heard in life, it makes me wonder about a lot of stuff. Now, Christmas, as we know it, really didn't start to be observed in the United States until like in the 1600s and going into the 1700s. Prior to that, Christmas wasn't observed here. This was more of a European thing and all that. We didn't observe Christmas in this country. All that came as a result of the people who traveled to this country, the Puritans and all them, when they came and stole the land from the natives and set up shop here. That's when they brought all those festivals with them. And see, the Roman Catholic Church had to adopt Christmas and a number of other pagan holidays into their religion and their practices in order that it may not seem so ungodly, because the people in the church were practicing these days anyway. They were observing them anyhow, so they felt like, well, if you can't beat them, join them, and that's what they did. And so here we are, all these many centuries later, and most people still don't understand the true meaning of Christmas. But I would encourage you to do your own research, as I have done. And then you'll find out exactly why all of this is the way it is. So the bottom line is this: there is absolutely nothing, and I repeat, nothing about Christmas that is holy. It is simply a day that usually brings out the worst in people, causing even the maturest of adults to act like little kids. Additionally, Christmas is all about commercialism and conning people out of their hard-earned money. If you notice, there is a huge similarity between the CEOs of corporations and churches, in that both of them have their hands out looking for a dollar. They would bleed you dry if you're not careful. So when you hear people talking about Jesus is the reason for the season, no, I beg to differ. Because based on my observations, I just can't see it. Do you think that Jesus is the reason for the season? Is Jesus the reason why people go out here and get drunk and act a fool? I'm talking about act a damn fool. Do y'all think that Christ would sign off on any of this crap that's going on? Because if so, then you may need to question what you believe and why you continue to believe it. So, Merry Christmas, everybody. And that's all I have to say about that. I certainly enjoyed this little discussion, and I hope I've enlightened somebody with this, and I hope that I've enlightened somebody throughout the entire year. If I have, please let me know, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in once again to another episode of TJ's Topics. I am truly grateful, and I look forward to seeing you again when we get back together. Hope you have a happy holiday. Enjoy with your family and friends, and do whatever you feel like, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anyone else, okay? So until then, this is Taryn Jerome Harris, reminding you that every round goes higher and higher. I'll talk to you later.